Alright, what's up, y'all? It's DSD Informed. This is like the third time I've tried to record this. Things keep happening. Anyway, I really want to discuss real quick this concept or this ideal of the black man, woman, and child being God or gods in a plural sense. It's a very controversial statement for somebody to make because people have an idea or a concept of what they think God is or who God is, or what a God is, the powers that gods possess. To jump into something real quick, back in the day, Tupac got locked up, of course, and I was watching a video of him talking about how he met a guy in prison, and this guy, based on what I was hearing, was probably a 5%er. Tupac never said, I'm not sure if he said it or not, but I don't remember him saying whether or not the guy was, but he's like, the guy was like, yeah, you know, the black man is God, this, that, and another. And Tupac responded like, well, if you're God, why don't you just walk out of these bars and free yourself? If you're God, why don't you just do this? And if you're God, why don't you just do that? Because he had a concept, he had an idea of what God was or what God should be able to do. So if you're God, you should be able to do these things. Also, other individuals go, you know, if the black man is God, then why don't he get himself off crack? If the black man is God, why don't he get himself out of poverty and live righteous and live rich and wealthy and things of this nature? Well, throughout history, anytime, history period will show you that anytime any spiritual being, whether it be God or angels, demigods, individuals that served gods or anything of that sort, would succumb to human things, whether it be sex, whether it be human pleasures, not just any type of human things down here in our realm, it will screw them completely up. Now, whether or not you agree with what I'm about to say, or whether or not you agree with this concept and will completely argue against it, the fact of the matter is, it can be shown, it can be proven that not until encounters with outside civilizations on a grand scale, and more so on a scale of them trying to dominate us and intervening and interfering and intermingling and intermixing and things with our ancestors, do you see turmoil and grief and downfall of our people? The reason I point that out is because there's a video of a man, I want to say it's Charles Manson, but I'm not sure, but I want to say it's Charles Manson, and he talks about the fact of the black man being God. And he's talking to a white man when he's saying this, and he's like, you know, he wants to be like you. He dresses like you, walks like you, talks like you. He wants to be with your woman. He's more of you than you are of you. He was like, he said when they were in the jungle. So when the black man was in the black man's realm, when the black woman was in the black woman's realm, when the black child was in the black child's realm, we were gods. They brought us out of our realm into their realm, and we became man. See, the fact of the matter is, when you're in your own place, when you're where you're supposed to be, when you're in your natural, I don't even know, habitat. I don't even want to say habitat. It sounds animalistic, and I know how people feel about we're greater than animals. But when you're in that natural setting where you're supposed to be, where your spirit, your mind, and your body are all on one accord with the nature that's around you, you are godlike. You're in complete creative and dominant control. And, you know, only God has the ability to create and destroy. Because everybody that believes in a God of some sort, except for those who don't, of course, have this idea of God having the ultimate power to destroy and create. Create from nothing, destroy down to everything. I make this point because when people go, if you're God, then you can do this. If you're God, then you can do that. If you're God, then do this. But it has to be understood that we're not in our God spectrum. We're not in our God realm. Therefore, we cannot behave in our to our godlike abilities or in our godlike ways. And again, historically speaking, anytime you look, whether it's at the Greeks, the Romans, Africans, if you look at the any Chinese type of historical reference, anytime the gods would succumb to human situations, they will automatically lose their powers. Even in the movie Hancock, just a perfect example. Him and the woman he was with, they were gods. They were gods, especially amongst men. They were gods. Immense strength, speed, power, indestructible. But when they decided to get together and marry, to be together, they became human. And sooner or later they would die. And if you're monotheistic, and for those who don't know what that means, it means you believe in one God, then it's impossible for a God or for God to marry because there's only one. There's no equal sense for God to attach itself to. So once God decides to marry, pair up, and do something that's humanistic, then God becomes human and no longer can behave in his godlike ways. Mortal Kombat, I'm just throwing off random things off the top of the head, like I'm really just freestyling this. In Mortal Kombat, Raiden could not dwell in the human realm for too long because his god powers would start to drain because he was not in a god realm. Anyways, all of these examples, and just to drive in the point of when black people say that we are God, and then people try to counter challenge with their ideas or their concept of what God is or the powers that God should have, it fails because they fail to understand one basic rule. Gods do not behave in a God-like manner when they are outside of their God realm. Even Jesus of the Bible, to speak, did not utilize the full extent of his powers that he would have had he been in heaven. Like, think about that. You're the son of you are the only son, so to speak. Like the direct son of the God. Biblically speaking, of the God. And you succumb yourself to a lot of things. Allow yourself to be tortured and beaten and bruised and battered and hurt. All of this on an individual who is the son of the God, because he's in a human realm. He succumbed himself to humanistic things and he's no longer in his God realm. And that's what that is ultimately. So again, you might not agree with what I have to say. You might be totally thrown off. You're ready to argue, ready to go to your books, your scriptures, your history, and just start throwing it. But when you really consider the things that I say and the things that I've said and what I've presented in this short time, it's understandable and it's reasonable to think of that nature and to think in that nature. Anyway, I'm Des the Informed. This video has run on a little bit longer than I wanted to. And I'll holler at y'all later. You have a good night. Peace.